everyone, welcome to LAPERY'S College of Fashion YouTube sewing channel. I am Omotola Demibai, a proud Nigerian and the creative director of LAPERY'S Fashion brand. Have been in the business of making female outer garments and training people since the year 2003. I've done freehand for several years before switching to pattern drafting, and from my experiences about garment fitting issues, I went into a research and I was able to develop the LAPERY'S method of drafting basic skirt pattern, likewise the LAPERY'S method of drafting basic bodice pattern. Attached with this method are tables, and for today on this platform, we shall be unveiling and making a maiden appearance online and also analyzing this LAPERY'S Skirt Drafting Table, which is a guide to skirt perfect fit. The LAPERY'S method of drafting basic skirt pattern alongside with this table was actually based upon our understanding of the human body structure. I have a video already on this topic. If you are new to my channel or you are yet to watch my video on the understanding of the human body structure, I'll put the link in the description box below. Kindly do watch, and as you watch, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that I get notified every time I upload new videos on this channel. Without further ado, let's go into the unveiling and analysis of the LAPERY'S Skirt Drafting Table. Here is the LAPERY'S Skirt Drafting Table. It has 5 columns and 5 rows. In the first column, we have the heading as difference between waist and hip. So we are drafting your skirt pattern. You check for the difference between your waist measurement and the hip measurement. Whatever that result gives you, you actually look out for it in this first column. In the second column, we have back hip will be more than front hip by. So this second column actually guides us in knowing how to divide our skirt pattern such that we make enough room and allowance for the back hip measurement. Remember, the LAPERY'S skirt drafting method is based on a major premise, which is we are not supposed to be dividing our hip measurement equally between the front piece and the back piece when we are drafting our skirt pattern. Many a times the back piece should take more because that is where the buttock is. So this second column actually guides us to knowing by what value the back piece of our skirts will be more than the front piece. In the third column, we have the heading as center front lowering, which is another premise upon which the LAPERY'S skirt method is being drafted. Our center front length and the center back length are not supposed to be equal most times. So this third column actually guides us to knowing by what value we'll be lowering our center front such that the center back line is longer than the center front. In the fourth column, we have the front waist dart intake, so which guides us to knowing the width of our dart. It's not in all cases that our dart will be 1 inch. Sometimes your dart intake can be less than 1, sometimes it can be more than 1. So the LAPERY'S skirt drafting method is debunking that norm of making that intake to be 1 inch all the time. In the fifth column, we have back waist dart intake. So the back waist, this fifth column is guiding us to knowing the width of our dart for the back piece, which many a time is not always worn as well. Now for the rows actually guide us to be able to effectively use this skirt drafting table. So if you want to draft your skirt pattern, haven't checked the difference between your waist and hip measurement, wherever it falls, you look for the row where that value falls. So every information in that row completely is what you are going to be making use of. So in this first row, we have 0 to 2.5 inches, which means if the difference between the waist and hip measurement that you are working with falls between 0 to 2.5 of an inch, that means you are going to be making use of all of the values in this first row. That then means when you are dividing or you are drafting your pattern, the back hip now will be more than the front hip measurement, which is the second column, by nothing, nil, because the difference in the waist and hip measurement isn't that much. Take for instance, you are working with, let's say, waist 38, hip 40. That difference is actually 2 inches, which isn't that much. In that case, we want to divide our skirt pattern between the front and the back. The hip measurement that we are going to be making use will be shared equally. There wouldn't be any difference between the front hip and the back hip. That means for this person does not really have buttocks. Does not really have butt. Instead, this person is broad and wide. So there isn't any much difference. So we are going to be sharing it equally. So when we move to the center front lowering, it will still be the same. It will be nothing. That means the center front length and the back length can maintain the same length, because nothing is going to raise up the back piece as such, because this person does not really have butt. Now, in the fourth column, still using this first line, the first row, under the front waist dart intake, we'll be having 0.5 of an inch or 0.75, which is 3/4. So it's either going to be half an inch or 3/4 of an inch, 0.5 or 0.75, depending on where the measurement, the difference actually falls. Remember, in the first column we have, in the first row, in the first column, we have 0 to 2.5 of an inch, which means sometimes the difference can be 1, could be 1.5, can be 2 or 2.5. So if yours is the one you are working with falls, let's say 1, they will be making use of half an inch. But if it tends toward 2 inches to 2.5, you'll be making use of 0.75, because by the time you even draft your skirt pattern, the difference between the waist measurement now and haven't taken your dart to the side seam, what you are going to be having left to that side seam will be so small, not so much of a difference. You can't have up to 1 inch. So which actually supports that premise that sometimes our dart intake is not up to 1. And in this first line, that is proven. If you can practice it, just use that same measurement with 38, hip 40 and try to draft. You understand this line better. What you're going to be having left on the side seam will be so small, so that you cannot even have up to 1 inch as your dart. If you do that, your waist measurement will be much more wider than the hip, and that will not be in conformity with body structure. So moving on, in the second row, we have greater than 2.5 to 5.5 of an inch. So we are working with a waist measurement and hip difference that is greater than 2.5, let's say 3 inches, 4 inches, 5. If it falls between this row, you are going to be making use of all of the information in this line, such that when you are drafting your skirt pattern, the back hip now, moving to the second column, will be more than the front hip now by 0.25, which is 1/4 of an inch. When you are drafting your skirt pattern, we are going to be drafting half of the back piece and half of the front piece, not full. So this 0.25 for the back now will translate to half an inch, because this is 1/4. 0.25 is 1/4. So on the full measurement for the back, that will be half an inch. So we are drafting our skirt pattern now. That half piece of the back will carry 0.25 difference. It will be wider than that of the front by 0.25. Then when it comes to your center front lower, it will be times 2 of the value in this second column, such that the center front lowering now will be 0.5, which is half of an inch. We'll be lowering the center front by half of an inch, and the back will be longer by that same value. Now, in the fourth column, the front waist dart intake will be 0.75 of an inch, while your back waist dart intake will be 1 inch. Since we have made enough room and allowance for the back piece now, the back is much more wider than the front. so also will be the dart intake, so that we can actually create enough room for the butt, for the buttocks very well. So your dart intake at the back will be much more wider, and that's why we are having 1 inch. In the third column, we have greater than 5.5 to 8.5 of an inch. So we are working with measurement parameters which the hip and waist difference falls between this line. Then your back hip will be more than your front hip measurement by 0.5, by half an inch when you are drafting, so that by the time you spread it open, your full piece now, it translates to times 2, which is 1 inch. Now for the center front lowering, you have 1, so be lowering your center front by 1 inch, so that we are working with, let's say, skirt length 24. At the center front now, you'll be having 23, while the center back will remain 24. Then the front waist dart intake now will be 1 inch, while the back waist dart intake will be 1.25, which makes the back wider than the front, and then with regards to the dart intake now. Then in row 4, we have greater than 8.5 of an inch to 11.5 of an inch. And if that's the case, your back hip now will be more than the front hip by 0.75 of an inch, which by the time you spread it open, that is 1.5 times 2. Then for the center front lowering now, our center front lowering will still be times 2 of the value in the second column, which is 1.5. So we are working with skirt length 24, like I gave that example now. Your center front length now will be 22.5, while the back remains at 24, difference of 1.5 of an inch, which shows that this person is well endowed at the back. So as the buttock raises the back upwards, now there wouldn't be any seemingly difference at the hemline. It will still look equal. Then the front waist dart intake, that's column 4 now, will be 1.25 for the front, the dart intake, while the back dart intake will be 1.5, creating enough room for the buttocks. And if you observe it very well, the row 3 major and average measurement will fall here, and that is why our waist dart intake sometimes have been confused to be 1. No, it's just that most measurement parameters will fall in this row 3. But sometimes you can have it less than, you can have it more than. So we cannot make everything to be equal. They still vary. Now, in the last column, the last row, the 5th row now, we have 12 inches upwards. So if your difference between the hip and waist now falls between this row now, you'll be making use of this value. This is a rare case anyway, but sometimes we have people whose statistics will fall under this category. So if that's the case, back hip will now be more than the front hip by 1 inch, which by the time we spread it open, it becomes 2 inches. Then the center front lowering now will be times 2 of the second column, and that will give us 2 inches. So that we are still doing length 24. That means the front piece now will be 22, while the back piece now will still be 24. Then the front waist dart intake now will be 1.5 of an inch, while the back waist dart intake now will be 2 inches upwards. And because of this width now, that's why we put it there as double dart. For such dart intake, you might need to split it so that you don't take it on just a spot. At the back of such a skirt, you might have a double dart. So the 2 inches or 2.5 width now can be shared into 1 and 1/4, or into 1 1/2, then or 3/4 and 1.5. You split it so that it can give enough room, and you should make it to actually balance well at the back piece. So that is it about the LAPERY'S Skirt Drafting Table. It's so easy to follow. Just follow through with the steps and the guidelines that have been highlighted, and you are just good to go to drafting your skirt pattern to achieving a perfect fit. Thank you. Welcome back. I guess someone is saying wow, wow, wow already. Yes, that is it about the LAPERY'S Skirt Drafting Table. It's so easy. All you just need to do is to have a copy, and the more you use it, the more you get a better understanding of it. All right, respect to all the content of that table, but you are free to use it. But anytime you do so, don't forget to give credit to the source. For a copy of that table, you may log on to our website at www.lapery.com. If this video has been helpful, kindly give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so that you get notified each time I upload videos on this channel. Until my next video, thank you for watching. Bye for now.
LAPERY College of Fashion, raising professionals.